Hello, welcome to Stagehand, the show where we talk about things I learned while being a stagehand. This is part 2 of me talking about college and going to school for theater. Last part was about why I went to college and my experience with that, so if you want a little bit of a backstory on my personal opinions in this video, go watch that one. Okay, it's hard to really say a clear, concise answer because it really depends on what you're going to do. It also depends on where you live, how big your network is, if you have any family in the industry, things like that. There's no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong here. You can be more successful without a college degree than most people out there with a college degree. It really just depends on how hard you personally work. But more importantly, how many good, solid connections you make with other people. Because someone could be the absolute shittiest person, have the worst work ethic in the world, but a boss could still choose them over you because they know who they are. But people like that kind of bring a bad reputation to certain parts of the industry. So please don't be that kind of person. I can't really speak for actors, but I know a lot of people who have benefited from BFA programs, don't benefit from BFA programs, some people who just have a lot of good coaches on the outside, and half the people who just went straight to auditioning after college. People have different approaches. There are a lot of actors out there that share their opinion on this. Go look at one of their pages. Production managers, producers, all of that administrative stuff, I don't really know, but I do think it's important for you to at least have an understanding of the people that you're going to be in charge of. Whether that means you work as a technician for a few years, you do some acting, you do all of that, you need to have that perspective of being on that side of things to really understand what you're going to be putting other people through. So now I'm just going to say we're down to like designers versus technicians. Yes, they are two very different jobs, often very much so separated once you get to places like New York and such. Some people will argue that you can't do both, but I disagree. I'm not going to specifically say if you're a designer, yes, you should go to college, or if you're a technician, yes, you should go to college, but I'm going to give you some scenarios and that's going to kind of help you decide if that's the right path for you. Additionally, there's the BFA versus the BA versus the not even going to school for theater. A BFA in technical theater could be beneficial if you feel like you need to be exposed to more different areas at a higher kind of understanding level and more of an intense form of study. I feel like a BA in theater studies kind of more gives you a blanket talking about every different aspect of the theatrical world, and doesn't go as in-depth as a BFA would in certain technical aspects. That being said, getting like a BA in theater studies or anything in general and working with IATSE on the side, that'll give you kind of the same effect as going to school for a BFA. Now, if you want to do more designing and you want more instruction with designing, sometimes a BFA program can help you have that sort of instruction. You can still be a designer in some BA programs, but I feel like from my personal experience, you're more like completely on your own. I know some BFA programs that are actually very similar to that, where they just leave you on your own and give you a textbook. Again, it's hard to make a big blanket statement because every single college is different, and it really depends on how many credits they have you take in that major and how much of your time you have to dedicate to your major. Personally, I like the idea of going for a BA in something and then doing more work on the outside, and then if you really want to specialize in something, you go back for your MFA in whatever that one thing is. But it's good to spend some time in between the two places so you can get a bit of a resume, get some more like real world experience. But here comes the question of what do you want to do in theater? Not just the design, not just the technical aspect, not just the acting part. Do you want to be on the educational side of things? Do you want to be on the community theater side of things? Or do you want to be in the commercial side of things? Because education theater and commercial theater are two very different things. If you want to be a lighting technician on a Broadway national tour, it might be more beneficial for you to just get a BA in something else and work in IATSE. Because likely a lot of the equipment that you're going to be seeing on those national tours is not going to be what you're going to be seeing in your educational theater. And the educational way of doing things is often very different than the way that we do things commercially. Unless, of course, the professor or the technical director was an IATSE member at one point in time and they teach you that way. Which, if you're a technical theater educator, I would highly recommend working a few calls in the union and doing a couple classes if you can, because I feel like it'll give you a better understanding of the world that some of your students might be going into and give you more of a grasp on how you can kind of start teaching your students the professional mindset, the professional way at a bit of a younger age and make it more of a habit. If you see yourself working in educational theater, oftentimes, like 90% of the time, you do need to have your degree. Sometimes even an MFA. But it's also something you'd want to do anyway because you're learning how to teach students by being a student yourself. If you want to do like community theater after college, college mostly and not really go any further than that, I would just say like minoring in theater. You can often do a lot of theater without actually being a theater major. Also, you can also work with IATSE on the side. Now, what if you're at a school that's really in the middle of nowhere? There's really no local IA, which is the case sometimes. And you just feel like there's no actual professional opportunities for you to get out of your school. This is where summer stock kind of comes into play. I've never done summer stock. I can't really speak on it. Take summer stock opportunities at your own risk. Some of them will provide great resources and connections that could get you on tour, could get you jobs in New York, like professional gigs. But so many of them will underpay you and make you work more hours than a human should be working. And I know countless people who have just quit theater altogether after college because they were so burnt out from summer stock. This is why I chose to be a tour guide in Alaska for 2 summers in college instead of doing that. But sometimes a summer stock or an internship is one of your only ways to make a professional connection if you're living in like middle of nowhere Montana. So that's another thing to take into account. Like if you want to choose a school that's in an area that has more than one different outside place that you can be doing theater. A lot of schools are going to try to convince you to only do theater there, or really not give you the schedule to do it anywhere else. But sometimes that's what you need, especially if your professors are in different fields of theater in different areas and don't really overlap into the one that you want to do. Look at the resume of your professors. Think about what you want to do past college. And I didn't say this yet, but look at the cost. I know as an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old, that's not something you really want to be thinking about. But being post-college, I feel like that's the only thing I remember now is how much money I spent. You don't need to go to a school that's going to cost you $250,000. You will likely make friends wherever you go. And I can assure you there are programs out there that are way cheaper and will have the same effect. Some of these high-end theater schools are really amazing, have really good programs, yada yada, but they cost you $250,000. And if your goal is to really just work at a regional theater, it might be really hard for you to pay those loans back. For example, I went to school for 2.5 years. I only have like $26,000 in student loans left. My student loan bill is maybe $312 a month. My partner, on the other hand, went to a more expensive school for 4 years, and her student loan bills are $1,200 a month. In New York, it's not impossible to make that. But at some jobs, that's gonna be half of your monthly income. Don't feel ashamed if you can't afford an institution. Don't feel like it's going to hold you back. You are going to be the only one holding yourself back. You don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to school. Heck, you don't even need to go to school. You are going to be up against people who dropped out of high school. And you can either choose to use your degree to your advantage, or you can choose to just brush it under the rug. Sometimes college will give you the necessary stepping stones to move forward in your life, or get back on your feet, or kind of help you survive. But some of you out there are already there. I know none of this gave a clear yes or no answer, but I hope it kind of helped you think about other aspects a little bit more. Just from the perspective of someone who graduated within the last 2 years and now has done XYZ professionally. But if you want to work in the industry and you feel like college is not right for you, just remember to work hard, keep learning in whatever way suits you best, and make a lot of connections. Keep making connections. That is how you are going to grow. Don't lash out at people. Be nice. Set boundaries. The show must be safe or it mustn't go on. And try to always remember what you love about what you do. It's gonna be the best job in the world, and it's gonna be absolute atrocious hell. But it's also whatever you make of it. Anyway, I hope that helps some of you out. And now I gotta get packing for my next adventure. So stay spicy, y'all.